Hi, boys and girls. This is Unit 6 of Knowledge, and this is Lesson 3 about the 4 seasons in 1 year and how that happens. We talked a little bit about what makes the seasons in the last lesson, but on this one, we're going to talk a little bit about spring and fall and winter and summer and how those things happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about how it directly affects us here in Michigan. Did you know that many plants grow more rapidly during the summer and more slowly or not at all during the winter? Or why some animals migrate where others hibernate? When an animal migrates, it leaves to spend winter in a warmer place, but an animal that hibernates finds a special place to rest until spring, so they sleep all winter. Only certain parts of our Earth have seasons. This is because of the shape and tilt of Earth. The region around the equator receives the greatest amount of direct, intense sunlight. This region of Earth is called a tropical region because it's almost always hot and humid. The North and South poles receive the least amount of direct sunlight. They are the polar regions of Earth. Generally, they remain cold and dry. In recent years, however, as Earth's overall climate has changed and has become warmer, the polar regions are warming up too, and some of the ice caps in this region have begun melting. The region between the poles on either side of the equator is called the temperate region. This is the region of the world where we live. Most places experience all 4 seasons of the year. And that's us, boys and girls. We experience all four. All right. So remember, during the time of year when the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, this part of our world receives more daylight and more intense sunlight. This means it's summertime in the northern hemisphere. At the same time, the southern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, so it is winter there. That's why, as Earth revolves around the sun and is tilted on its axis, the seasons change. Now, let's discover more information about each specific season. I like this graph, and you have a graph similar to this in your workbook. In spring, daylight hours increase and the sunlight becomes stronger. With the warmer weather, more rain begins to fall. With increased light, warmth, and rain, plants begin to grow again. Seeds resting in the soil begin to take root. The warmth of the sun and the rainfall enables plant seeds to germinate or begin to grow into plants. You have probably heard the saying, April showers bring May flowers. New plants emerge, and plants that have been inactive for the winter become active and start growing again. As buds and leaves form, the water the plant has absorbed or taken in travels up the stem to the leaves. Plants use water and sunlight to make their own food, as well as oxygen for us to breathe. This process is called photosynthesis. It is during springtime that this great burst of life and energy occurs. Springtime also sees the return of animals that had migrated or moved to warmer places during the wintertime. It is also the time when some animals wake up from their winter hibernation. Spring is when many animals give birth to their young. Animals give birth either by bearing live young or by laying eggs. Animals that give birth to live young have nourished their young inside their bodies. Animals that hatch from eggs have been nourished by a yolk within the egg. Because the northern hemisphere receives more intense sunlight from the sun at a more direct angle in the summer, temperatures are usually at their highest during these months. With the increase of light and heat in the summer, plants grow big and strong. Young animals are born and grow strong during this fruitful time as well. Think about what baby animals we're going to start seeing, or maybe some of you have seen some of the baby animals already. As the earth revolves and summer turns to autumn, both the temperature and the environment begin to change again. In autumn, while it is still warm, light from the sun is not as intense, and the growth and development of plants and animals begins to slow down. So remember that things thrive when there's a lot of sunlight. So when there's less sunlight, things aren't going to grow as quickly or aren't going to change or grow at all. In many places in the northern hemisphere, autumn is a time to harvest the crops that have grown and ripened beneath the summer sun. Grass crops are harvested and grapes are picked from the vines. Fruits such as apples, pears, and pumpkins are ready to be eaten. and the amount of daylight lessens and the temperature continues to drop. The leaves of many trees change color. During this time, in many parts of the northern hemisphere, a world of copper, bronze, red, and orange leaves is a sight to behold. Leaves change color in the autumn because deciduous trees receive less sunshine than they need to produce food, and photosynthesis stops. When photosynthesis stops, these leaves begin to die and fall off. Therefore, deciduous trees are trees that have leaves that change color and fall off. Why do deciduous trees lose their leaves? Think about sunlight. Alright. When winter arrives, it means this part of the earth is now tilted away from the sun, and temperatures and sunlight are at a minimum. Minimum means the smallest amount possible. It also means that summer has arrived in the southern hemisphere. Because conditions are less favorable for living things in winter, growth and development slows down and even stops. During winter, deciduous trees rely on the food that they had previously produced and converted into energy. This food supply is stored in the roots. During winter, deciduous trees, as well as many other plants, enter a dormant state. In winter, some animals whose food source is affected by the change in climate migrate or leave for warmer places. These animals sense the change in daylight and temperature and begin their annual migration. Migration is a part of a yearly cycle of changes. Some birds, for example, travel long distances to their winter homes. They prepare for their migration by eating lots of food they can store as energy to use on their journey. Mammals such as caribou and elk migrate across vast expanses of land, and even fish migrate in winter in search of warmth and food. So the top animals there are animals and birds that migrate. But look at the bottom ones. Like many plants that lay dormant in the winter, there are animals that hibernate. Hibernation is a kind of deep sleep. Like deciduous trees, animals that hibernate rely on the food they have stored in their bodies to get them through the winter months. Can you name some animals that hibernate? This is a wolverine, but I want you to think of a skunk. Skunks hibernate as well. There are also animals that stay in their natural habitat through the colder months and survive as best they can. Animals such as foxes, deer, and rabbits search for food on the frozen land. Some build snug homes to keep out the cold. They have learned to adapt or adjust to their ever changing environment. People adapt too. They prepare for the cold months ahead by wearing warmer clothes or even changing the foods they eat. Do you prepare for autumn and winter? How do you prepare for autumn and winter? Think about getting those snow pants out and the boots. All right. I can things in the fall to last us through the winter and different foods. We're all part of this never ending cycle. When spring returns, the cycle of growth will begin all over again and new life will appear on earth. Okay, so it's a cycle and it goes all back to the beginning. All right, so there are some questions and there's some activities for you to do. Look on the next Google Doc so you can take a look at it.